Hi, Joe.
Hello, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
Oh, very good, very good. Little hectic today.
Little
But,
what? Say again?
it's a little hectic today.
Oh, sure. Okay. So let's do this. So do you have a slide deck with you
No,
or
no,
you
just be me. We only got
okay.
12 minutes, so I'd rather just talk to folks.
Okay. Do you have a bit of a different background that you could have as
No, not really.
okay. All right. So I'll let you go ahead and get started. After I stop speaking, just give it just a couple of seconds before you begin.
Okay, sure.
And remember that this is live, and let's say you're speaking to 100 people. So be sure to introduce yourself, thank them for joining you at the salute, introduce your topic, and then dive right in. At the end of your talk, it would be great if you could ask participants to uh, answer a question in the chat and just thank them for their time.
Okay.
It's a way for them to interact with you.
Can I
And
give them information in the chat?
sorry?
Can I give them information in the chat?
You can give them information verbally,
Okay.
and you can invite them to answer a question that you pose in the chat or in the comments. And the day of the salute, what will happen is when you're playing and they hear you prompt them, then when the event is actually live, you'll be able to interact with them live in the chat that day.
Okay. Okay.
All right, I'm going to count you down with my fingers. I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute, and then you can take it away.
Very good. Hello, folks. My name's Joseph Brady, and I'm here to do something for a salute to seniors and introduce you all to the idea of keeping your brain healthy and your mind sharp through all this. And a little bit on my background is I ran the gerontology program at the University of Denver for 20 years, and I'm still doing research there on healthy aging. And we've got a research project going on right now to see how seniors are doing through this whole pandemic thing. And that's why this particular subject is important, is because when we're isolated and alone, there's a phenomenon in older adults called marasmus, where the brain and the body begin to deteriorate just from the lack of social interaction and the lack of mental stimulation. And that's going to be a real problem as we begin to get the COVID thing under control. Other health problems are going to pop up that are a result of all this isolation. And so what I want to talk to you about today is how to deal with that in your own life so that you're not having problems as time goes by. And if nothing else, some of the activities we'll be talking about will help pass the time in a little bit more interesting fashion than just sitting around going over your Netflix subscription. Anyway, although there's value in that as well. I mean, currently we've got Disney and I'm binge watching the Pirates of the Caribbean just to take my mind away from all the crap going on. So that's by way of a little bit of an introduction. First thing I want to talk to you all about is physical activity. What scientists have found over the last 20 years is in order to keep the mind healthy, what John Kennedy said was right all along, a strong mind and a strong body very much go together. And when you're physically active, that improves blood flow to the brain. That also helps with depression. It helps with anxiety. It helps with a lot of the problems going on today with the whole COVID thing. If you can make a point every day to get a good half an hour to an hour's worth of physical activity of some kind, whatever you happen to enjoy. My own particular cup of tea is Tai Chi, and it's kind of perfectly suited for doing outside. We've still got some classes going. As you can see from the background, I do traditional Chinese medicine these days. And we've got a number of outdoor, socially distant classes that we do with older adults because it can be done safely. And at the same time, people are getting, I was surprised with how many we had show up with our classes initially. But I would encourage you to go ahead and get any kind of physical activity you can. given the circumstances. Make sure you're wearing a mask if you're going to be around people at all. When you're outside walking in the park and there's nobody around, you're free to take the mask off. You're not going to be any risk of exposure. And then even around the house, even just getting some stretching and getting up out of a chair once in a while. Big difference in your fitness level when you stand once in a while rather than sitting in front of the TV all the time. Hopefully I'm preaching to the choir on this. Usually people that come to Salute to Seniors are already physically active to begin with. So hopefully I'm just reminding you of stuff you already know. Second thing that's crucial is mental exercise. Many studies at this point, many good random controlled trials now have been done that showed that when you read a book, when you take a class, when you go do things that are stimulating, learn a new skill, play a musical instrument, there's 100 different things that you can do to keep your mind active through all this, rather than just sitting and what do they call it, doom scrolling about all the bad news that comes across the TV and the computer all day long. You need to keep touch with what's going on in the world, but you don't need to obsess about it. We had one of the people that I've worked with over the years was a gentleman that spent 30 years of his life in a mental institution. Eileen Doherty with the Colorado Gerontological Society would know him. His name was George Caron. He spent 30 years of his life in a mental institution. As a therapist, not as a patient, although many of you may be hip enough to know that sometimes there's not a dime's worth of difference between the two. But anyway, he told one of my classes one day that after 30 years of watching people that had driven themselves crazy in a mental institution, he found that the best friend you will ever have your whole life is a good book. So keep one handy at all times. When you are reading the lines in a book, you are effectively meditating. It's one of the simplest, most popular forms of meditation in the world today. You cannot think about your troubles and think about the troubles of the world while you're sitting down reading the troubles of the characters in the story. And your brain knows the difference. And so especially when it comes to getting a good night's sleep, which is a real issue these days, my recommendation, like George, is for you to have a good book and keep one handy at all times so that you can turn your mind off at the end of the day instead of obsessing about the troubles in the world, and try to get yourself a good night's sleep. That good night's sleep is crucial for brain health. Little by little, if you're not getting enough sleep, it's going to make everybody dopey. And so I would highly recommend that you, again, learn a new skill, take a class. There's a lot of new classes online for the University of Denver with their OLLI program, the Osher Institute for Lifelong Learning. And also there's a website you can look at, the communitymedschool.org, that has links to online classes that you can take at Oxford University. One of the advantages with doing things online is you can take stuff internationally and get to go to Oxford and take a class there. And they've got a lot of things that are free in addition to their normal classes, and even stuff that you can do online if you're looking to get your master's degree from Oxford University, if you like. But here locally, again, the University of Denver has got their OLLI program entirely online coming up in fall. And I believe registration has begun, but you can find the link on that website. Again, that's communitymedschool.org. Another important factor is diet. And one of the quiz questions I use for my students at the School of Chinese Medicine is, what is the number one, there's a good question for you all to put your answer in the chat. What's the number one herb for keeping your mind sharp? And I'll give you a second to put it in the chat, and then I'll give you the answer. It's water. Believe it or not, your brain depends on a certain amount of water in order to be able to function. In fact, well, you can ask any NFL coach in the country. At the end of the game, at the end of the football game, championship on the line, 2-minute warning, and there's some idiot standing next to the quarterback with a water bottle, squirting water in his mouth. You ever wonder about that? You know, with the Broncos, that guy's got a PhD in nutrition, and his sole job with the Broncos is to make sure the athletes are not dehydrated. Any NFL coach in the country can tell you, if the athlete's as little as 15% dehydrated, they're not going to be tired, they're not going to be thirsty, they're going to forget the play. First sign of dehydration is mental confusion and memory loss. And interestingly enough, the average older adult in the United States is not 15% dehydrated. They're got those numbers backwards. The 10% dehydrated is what the athletes look for. 15% dehydrated is what the average older adult is. in which case, a lot of times when they're showing mental confusion and memory loss, they don't have some PhD with nutrition standing next to them squirting water in their mouth. They have people around them telling them, boy, your mind goes when you get older, and they take it as a normal part of aging, and it's not. It's one of the #1 reasons for a misdiagnosis of Alzheimer's, people being dehydrated. It's a particular problem here in Colorado because we live in such a dry climate. And in addition to that, there's about a half a dozen other nutrients that if you're deficient in those, they're going to make your mind a little bit loopy. Vitamin B12 is a big one here in Colorado. Zinc deficiencies are real common with older adults that are showing mental problems. And to make sure that you're drinking lots of fluids and getting a decent diet through all this, instead of what a lot of people are doing is binging on comfort foods. A little bit of comfort foods under the circumstances are appropriate, but also make sure you're getting some nutrition in on top of that. And last but not least is the social interaction. And under the circumstances, you have to be real careful, obviously, about your social interactions. Gatherings of people are really not appropriate, but that doesn't mean you have to be socially isolated. There's lots of stuff that you can do online. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're somewhat skillful at using Zoom. But if you get yourself a Zoom account, which is free, you can use that with the grandkids, you can use that with friends. A good opportunity during all this is to take out your address book. And you know those old friends you've been meaning to look up for the longest time? Now's a good time to go ahead and check on them and work on your social skills a little bit. And so I would encourage you to do stuff online. If you have the opportunity, if you've got a lot of my older adults that have a fairly decent backyard, in which case it is appropriate to invite the family and the grandkids over. They can play in the backyard and you all can keep socially distanced. Your risk of transmission of the disease is much lower when you're outside than when you're in an indoor location. Even when it comes to restaurants, it is doable to meet in a restaurant these days with friends, as long as you pick one that's got an outside patio and they're being good about their regulations. The waiters and waitresses all wearing masks and all that. Customers wearing masks going in. Once you sit down at the table, especially if it's an outdoor restaurant, you're good to do that sort of thing. So don't be afraid to go ahead and socialize some. And then a couple of odds and ends I'd like to throw in here at the end. Doctors are finding that keeping your blood sugar under control is important for mental function, and also keeping your cholesterol under control, keeping your blood pressure under control. Stay on top of those things. If you're taking medications, be good about getting your medications and taking them on time. Again, don't be afraid to go down to the pharmacy. You wear your mask when you go down to pick up stuff. I've had some older adults that are afraid to pick up their medications. You don't need to be. If you're wearing a mask when you go places, you're safe and not to worry about it. Usually you get in, get out, and it takes maybe 5-10 minutes tops if you call it in ahead of time. And then what I'd like to do here at the end is give you all a quiz question that you can put in the chat here. If you go down to the bottom of your screen and click on chat, you can type in some answers to the questions here. What I would like to know particularly, and give you a chance to think about what you're doing, is what are you in specific doing to keep your mind healthy and sharp and keep the stress and depression and anxiety at bay through all the troubles that we're going through. Eventually, we will find our way through all this. And you need to be healthy, both in mind and body when we do. So there you go, folks. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Salute to Seniors here and the other talks that they have in mind. And so maybe I'll see you if you need to contact me. Again, joseph.brady at du.edu would be a good way to contact me. I'd be happy to give you references or answer any questions. Again, that's joseph.brady at du.edu. Thanks, folks, and have a good rest of your day.